shelf unit. That's not everything. So hold on a second, we'll switch to a different angle. Hi there. I have to say I'm shocked you're still here. Actually, after going through that shelf, I'm shocked I'm still here, but I haven't had a heart attack yet, so I might as well keep going. I did the math, and we've actually gone through 70 games so far, only 21 of which I don't know how to play yet, which is depressing, but also better than I was afraid it was going to be. So, let's see. I think that's about a third of the collection, which I probably shouldn't have said because you're probably all stopping the video right now, but I think the percentages might be better from here on out in terms of games I know how to play, but we'll see. So, over here we've got Betrayal Betrayal at the House on the Hill, not on the house in the hill. This game has problems, and in my opinion, anybody who's being honest with themselves and honest with you will tell you that it has problems. But it's also trying to do something that I don't think any other game on the market is trying to do, and that's pretty laudable. So this is a game where it's a cooperative game, or it starts as a cooperative game, where you're moving through this creepy haunted house and having different encounters and collecting items and that sort of thing. And that at some point, the game switches to a one versus many game where one of the players turns out, unbeknownst to even that player, to have been a traitor all along who has lured the other characters to this house, typically to kill them or sacrifice them, that sort of thing. And at that point, combat happens. There's a lot of dice rolling. And there are, I don't know, like 40 different scenarios in the base box. Plus they just brought out an expansion that gives you even more for different ways this game can go. Some of them are really good. Some of them are terrible. And even the really good ones can be shot in the foot by what happened before this switch called the haunt is triggered. It could be that the person who turns out to be the bad guy is also the person who found all the good stuff beforehand, so everybody else doesn't have a chance, or the opposite could happen, or they could be in a really bad position for whatever their secret evil plan ends up being. There are all sorts of ways this game can break down. Plus, Wizards of the Coast, the second edition, the component quality is really has some lame problems that are kind of embarrassing, and the company should know better. So I don't know if I could recommend it or not. When it's good, it's good. Often it's kind of eh. Sometimes it's awful. Above that we have the Grizzled. The Grizzled is a cooperative set avoidance game instead of set collection game. It has a World War I theme. It has amazing art, which was done by a cartoonist who was killed in the Charlie Hebdo attack, so it has kind of extra sadness on top of the cheerful World War I trench warfare theme. It is a brilliant, brilliant game. It's in a tiny box, and there's so much going on in here. Highly recommended. And the expansion, which I've read the rulebook for but haven't played yet, is supposed to smooth out some of the issues, particularly with the two-player gameplay. And also gives you more control over the difficulty, which is good. This game can be pretty darn difficult. Okay, I guess I'll keep going on this level. Next we have La Granja No Siesta, which is the dice game version of the kind of drab-looking Spanish farmer game that I talked about over on the other bookshelf. Really, really excited to play this one. Haven't actually learned it yet. I've read the manual, but I haven't actually learned it yet. Then we have Motainai. Motainai is by Carl Chuduk. His most famous game is probably Glory to Rome, which was made in an early Ugly edition and a later kickstarted ultra-rare black edition with good art. It's supposed to be amazing. It's out of print because of some dispute between him and the publisher and the artist or something. It's a little card game that'll cost you like $250 on eBay. Motainai is one of several games that he did afterwards that were sort of spiritual successors. This has sort of a theme where it's monks crafting different art pieces to sell to tourists. It has kind of a paper cut art style. It's a game like Glory to Rome and his other game Impulse. It's about using cards in different ways based on where you put them around a center board, sort of like Le Grognon, which gets that mechanic from Glory to Rome. Haven't learned that one yet either. Next we have Archaeology, which is a great little card game that I quite like, but my wife doesn't, so I don't get to play it very often. It's set collection with other options for sort of exploration in tombs, and periodically over the course of the game a sandstorm will come in and try and wipe out everything you've collected but not sold to the market to get your money, which is largely your points. So there's a push your luck mechanic in terms of how long you hold on to your stuff, because the more time you give yourself to accrue parts of a set, the more valuable that set is, but the higher the risk that the sandstorm wipes it out. A lot of fun. Okay, let's go back down here. Suburbia. I love Suburbia. This is a tile placement game, sort of SimCity style. You're setting out hexes to build your city, and some of the hexes connect to or are affected by other people's cities, and they tend to all be affected by surrounding hexes in your city. And as you move up the point track, the number of points you get each turn and the amount of money you get each turn can downshift fairly radically. So you want your growth to be controlled, sustained, but significant. So that's a really neat aspect of the game. My wife isn't as much of a fan of this one because of the interconnectedness of the different players' cities. So I picked up Subdivision, which is a different designer but same company and sort of the same theme, but this is taking place inside one of the hexes from Suburbia. It's supposed to be lighter. It was on a great sale at Cool Stuff Inc. for $9. Haven't played it yet. Then we have Castles of Mad King Ludwig. This is by Ted Alspach, the designer of Suburbia. I think it's maybe a little bit lighter. You're building a castle instead of a city, and your castle doesn't connect to other people's castles in terms of how you affect each other. I think that, plus the theme, means that my wife likes this one much better than this one. One of the interesting things about this one is that each turn, one player sets the prices for all the castle pieces that are going to be sold that turn. So you want to set the price for what you want lower, but not so low that somebody else takes it, because you want everybody else to pay as much as possible, not just because they lose the money that they're spending, but you actually get the money that they're spending, and that's your primary source of income. That's going to need to largely sustain you until it comes around to you being the master builder and setting the prices again. Very cool. I think I prefer Suburbia. My wife prefers Castles. We have Ghost Stories, and this shelf is largely arranged by box size and where things fit, not by theme or mechanism, so we're jumping around a lot. Ghost Stories is an infamously difficult cooperative game that's really best played 4 players, so I haven't played it as much as I'd really, really like to. Sort of Chinese ghosts and exorcism theme where you're trying to defend a town from invading ghosts. It's really cool. I want to play more of it. Okay, Conquest of Planet Earth. I got this game because Tom Vassell says it's really good. It is a Flying Frog game. It's the only other Flying Frog game I own, and similarly, it is one of the few games in the collection that makes me sad. Why do I still have it? Because, again, it turns out that there's a variant in here that is not roll and move, and because Tom Vassell says it's great, so I really need to give it another chance. But as you've noticed, I have a few other games, so I haven't gotten back to it yet. Legends of Andor is a cooperative game. It has sort of a sword and sorcery theme, and the combat does have dice in it, but in almost every other way, it's a very European-style game. You have to actually pick your battles very carefully, because each time you get into a fight, you're advancing the clock for the scenario, which means it's quite possible to run out of time or trigger events before you're ready for them, just because you're killing bad guys. So just because you can kill something doesn't mean you should kill something, which I think is probably a good lesson for all of us. And it's a campaign-based game. Yeah, very cool. I've played the first mission a couple times with different groups. Haven't got the same group of people together again to advance through the story. And we have Cinque Terre, which I probably butchered. Italian is not one of the languages I know anything about, really. Also known as the Five Villages. This is themed after a famous set of 5 tourist villages on the Italian coastline. This is a pick up and deliver game. It's maybe a little bit more complicated than Ticket to Ride. I think it's a great next step. It's a lot of fun. I tend to prefer more complicated, heavier games, but I quite like this one, and I think you should check it out. I don't think enough people talk about it. It's worth knowing about. Then we have Junk Art. Junk Art is, should have been, I think, one of the big games of last year. Everybody who plays it seems to love it, but not enough people check it out. It is a dexterity game, stacking game. You're all modern artists traveling the world to different cities. Each city has a different set of rules and scoring conditions, and you're basically stacking in specific ways based on the rules of each city, trying to accrue points, which are fans. Really, really clever design. Highly recommended. Every time I take this out, everybody has fun. And I'm not that big of a dexterity game guy, so yeah. Then we have Kashgar. Yep, haven't played this one yet. It's supposed to be really good. Not available in the US. This is actually in German. I had the English rules, but of course all the cards were in German. I found a place in China that would print a guy on Board Game Geek's very helpful English translation of all the cards and photoshopped onto the cards. So it's kind of ready to play and learn, but I haven't done it yet. Okay. Go down to the next tier. I think you guys can probably see that well enough. We have Dale of Merchants here, which is a small deck building card game with different merchant guilds, which are all animal themed, that you can use to build the game that you think you're in the mood for in terms of what types of cards are going to be involved. Haven't learned it yet. Run, Fight, or Die, which is a Yahtzee-style dice game about running through a city while being chased by hordes of zombies, killing them, and picking up various zombie tropes in the forms of weapons or survivors and that sort of thing. Some survivors are very helpful. Other survivors are worth a lot of points if you get them out alive, but will do selfish things like steal your stuff for themselves or could turn into a zombie later on, etc. It has flaws, but it's a lot of fun, especially if you're into zombie stuff, and I'm not even into zombie stuff, but I think it's a good design. And we have Nations, the dice game. Nations, the dice game is really good. It feels like there's not enough in the box, and I suspect there will never be an expansion, which is a huge shame because I think it could really use one. That said, it just feels a little bit shorter than I'd like and a little less varied from game to game than I would like, but it's still really good. You should play it. And you should buy it so that a lot of people buy it so they bring out that expansion I want. Speaking of games that don't have enough in the base box, we have Mystic Vale. Mystic Vale was another big game last year. It's a deck building game, but instead of building your deck, you're actually building the cards in the deck by sleeving in plastic overlays into the sleeve that add new abilities to the 20 card deck you start with. So your deck is always 20 cards. That's interesting. To me, what makes it particularly interesting is actually a far less innovative mechanic, and that's that it has a push your luck element in terms of deciding how many cards you're going to draw in a given turn. If you keep going, you're going to get more resources. If you go too far, you're going to bust and you're not going to get any resources. That really makes this an interesting game. The base box does not have enough cards in it, in my opinion, to keep it fresh and interesting. Fortunately, there's an expansion which adds more cards, although it doesn't add as many new mechanics as would be nice. It at least makes there be a little bit more variability. There's another expansion coming out later this year that will hopefully add more mechanisms. Okay, then we have two smaller game boxes here that are both stuffed to the gills by stuff. We have Paperback. These are both by Tim Fowers. Paperback is sort of a love child of Scrabble, which is one of my wife's favorite games, and a deck builder, which I'm more interested in than Scrabble. Quite good, although every time we've played it, it's really seemed to overstay its welcome. We get to the point where everybody's kind of grinding for the last couple of words that are going to end the game, and because you need to complete words of progressively longer lengths to advance to the end, even if somebody's pretty obviously won at that point. So I don't know if it's just that we're not employing the right strategies or what, but otherwise it's an awesome game. Then we have another Tim Fowers game, Brimley Brothers, which I think is brilliant. Brimley Brothers is a cooperative heist game. If you think of Ocean's 11 or the I guess the Sting would sort of qualify. There are Rififi, Sneakers. There's a whole bunch of these heist movies, most of which are quite good and some of which are terrible, like The Heist. Anyway, this is a really, really good game. You just have to keep in mind that because there's so much randomness in setup, it is possible that you will get horribly screwed at the very beginning of the game and you will have no chance of winning. That said, the one time that happened to me, we just laughed, we redealt the cards for the building, and we proceeded to have one of my best gaming experiences ever. A long, epic game that came down to the wire and we emerged from cheering in victory. So, it's worth the occasional rough start. Okay, we have Flip City. Flip City is a deck building game where every card has two sides, and you control, to some extent, when they flip. So that kind of affects the way your deck plays over the course of the game. Haven't learned this one yet. And we have San Juan. San Juan is one of my favorite games. It is the card game inspired by Puerto Rico, which is one of the great Euro games, which I've actually never played. San Juan was designed concurrently with Race for the Galaxy, and my understanding is the two designers started working together and then they went their separate ways and took their stuff in different directions. I haven't played Race for the Galaxy. I played Roll for the Galaxy, which we'll get to, and I think is an amazing game. But I really, really like San Juan. And it has an awesome iPhone, iPad app as well. So that's a great place to start because it's cheaper and it has a tutorial. But really, really, really good. Comes with an expansion in the box, which I actually haven't played with, even though I played this game a gazillion times. Everybody wants to play with the base game. I really want to try the expansion because expansions are great. Then we have Mogul. Mogul is an auction and stock game. It was a gift, and because I didn't obsessively research it the way I obsessively research all my other games, I can't really tell you that much more about it, other than the fact that it has a wooden bowl in it for collecting your bidding chips. I don't know why, but it's in there. Alright. Then we have the Castles of Burgundy, the card game. This is my third Stefan Feld game. I've heard so many good things about this game, and I have not learned how to play it yet, and I feel really bad about that. Then we have Sentinels of the Multiverse. Believe it or not, these 2 boxes are almost full, and they do not contain everything available for the game. These are cooperative superhero games where you each start with a deck of cards that is built in a very specific sort of way, thematically and mechanically, to fit the style of a particular hero, and they have kind of homegrown, generic brand versions of all your favorite superheroes. And then you take that deck and your compatriots' decks up against a powerful villain deck. But of course you have to fight the villain in a place, so there's another deck that's a setting deck that could help you or hurt you depending on the setting and what happens at what time. Very clever. Fun. Really impressed with it when I started collecting it, then collected a whole bunch, and I haven't played it since. Okay, then we have Smash Up. Smash Up is great. It's sort of like Magic the Gathering Light. It's much easier to get people into. You pick 2 different themed decks and you smash them up to make one larger deck, and that's the deck that you play with in sort of an area control game where you can combo things off of each other and undercut your opponents and that sort of thing. My wife does not like this game, so I haven't got to play it very much, which makes me sad, and that's why I only have 2 of the expansions instead of all of the expansions. Then we have Arcane Academy, which is almost the only Eric Lang game I own, because I do have some Dice Masters, so I guess it's not the only one, but it's certainly not the one everyone would assume that I owned. This is an engine building game with a magic school theme. Came out at Gen Con, but nobody really paid any attention to it. It's supposed to be really good. I have had it for a while, and I haven't learned how to play it yet.